Astra Travelers, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Teyvat, a Genshin Lore Podcast. Last week, we talked about our favorite broke grandfather, Rex Lapis, Morax, and Zhongli.
This week, we're taking a deep dive in Tataragami, the Curse of Orobashi. Or is it a curse? Let's find out.
Looking for a cave to slither into? Head on over to our website, talesofteyvat.com, where each episode has its own dedicated page with visuals curated by our chief scientist, Tiff.
Our site also includes links to our past seasons and special episodes, artist spotlights from the community for every episode, and wallpapers to download.
Finally, feel free to email us at talesofteyvatpod@gmail.com to let us know what you think of this week's episode and what topics you'd like to see in the future. Additionally, feel free to message us on Instagram or Twitter, or email us if you have any questions for Kirara. Kirara brings us mail at the end of every episode, and we're here to answer questions, or at least try to. So feel free to send us an email. But back in the days of Orobashi, I don't believe there were emails. I don't think there are emails at all, to be honest, in Teyvat.
We have to send dandelion scenes as little hello letters. I don't think there's emails.
I thought you were going to bring up the warrior pigeons. The courier pigeons, I mean.
I was like, who are the warriors?
What's a warrior pigeon?
I instantly thought of the courier pigeons they used in World War I.
I immediately imagined pigeons with little tiny swords.
With Timmy, in command behind them.
Yes.
Charge!
So scary.
That's a little, oh no.
I also thought of the whole, courier pigeon thing in Star Rail. I don't know, Brandon, if you've done that part, but it's always very confusing to me. And the
little origami birds?
Yeah, I'm always very confused when I do those puzzles and things. I'm like, why am I doing this?
I know. It's bizarre.
But we're here today to talk about Orobashi. And travelers, you might be saying to yourself, you've talked a lot about Orobashi this season. Totally ironic, was not planned that way. And Orobashi, as we know, was a snake god. But I want to talk a little bit about Enkanomiya, just to give our travelers a quick recap, since Orobashi does have a pretty heavy lore based in Enkanomiya. So pre-Orobashi becoming the god of Enkanomiya, the primordial one and the second who came got into an argument. They didn't like the fact that they were wearing the same outfit when they were arriving in Teyvat. They got real mad. They had a cat fight. And oopsie-daisy, Enkanomiya sank into the Dark Sea. The Dark Sea is assumed to be the Dark Sea, the place that we've heard where the gods do not touch. So Enkanomiya sinks, they're all alone. They are being attacked by Vishops, and they're scared of them. They are using lanterns to try to fend them off, and they're just begging for someone, some god from the surface to come and help them, and none of their prayers or wishes are being answered, except by Istaroth at some point. Istaroth comes down and provides Abrax enough knowledge to create what we now know as the Phillips Lightbulb god, aka the Dainichi Makoshi. Mothman's favorite pillar. It's basically a giant statue in the middle of Enkanomiya where you can switch the light to darker light. Most travelers, I would assume, have done those quests. And they start to worship the Dainichi Makoshi as a god. But what's really happening is that it's not a god. There are these aristocrats who are telling people it's a god, convincing people it's a god, and they are using the statue god, or the light bulb god, as we called in the Sun Children episode, to control the people. Oh, the Dainichi Makoshi didn't like that type of stuff. They then enlist children into their ploy, and they say that the light bulb is saying that these kids have to become the rulers. And these very young children are being put in charge, most likely because they're too naive to question the aristocrats. And then they start killing them once they're old enough to question the aristocrats. Because we all know that all kids question authority. You can listen a little bit more about the Sun Children in our Sun Children of Enkanomiya episode. We also have an episode, I think, from season 2 on Enjo and the Plight of Enkanomiya as well. So if you need a better recap than that, please feel free to check out those episodes. The reign of the Sun Children was canceled out once a little kid found a cave. Probably a kid afraid of becoming a sun god, or a Sun Children god, whatever they're called. This kid wandered into a cave and found Orobashi and was like, hey man, I'd really like you to like be our god.
Hey, man. You know, it'd be really cool. You can like show up and shit.
Yeah, he was like, like, could you stop the child sacrifice? Because I'm a child and I don't want to be sacrificed.
He's like, best I can do is roast you.
No, he was like, well, stop the roasting.
He was like combing his mustache and like, adjusting his pocket protector.
Are you saying that Orobashi is the early like influence of Fontanian fashion?
I don't know how fashionable Orobashi would have been, but I like to just think of him as Albert Einstein. So
Albert Einstein. So he has hair.
I mean, do snakes need hair?
I mean, if you're wearing a lab coat and a monocle, you do.
If he wants to look cool and fit in with all the other scientists.
With like a bushy mustache.
He's just going to have a full mask on like Totore.
Yeah.
Sorry, I brought him up
Which
already.
is always like the interesting part is like, so we know that he's a giant white snake, or occasionally referred to as a snake dragon.
White Snake the band?
Yeah.
I didn't know this was their origin story.
I'm not even going to sing.
That's literally Orobashi, though. As he like flees.
Yeah. He's got a blaring on his Mustang.
No, in his AirPods.
Oh my God.
On his like moped. No, he has an electric scooter because the other Archon stole everything from him.
Yeah. But like, I always wonder if there's a human form that he also takes. We have seen it in some other beings, that they've taken other forms. I mean, most notably, granted, he doesn't seem to go back and forth, but Venti was a wisp and then he just decided to be his dead friend.
Yeah, I feel like he could be a wisp again.
Yeah, like maybe he can't really drink alcohol as a wisp, so he's probably like, let me stay in this body.
He's like preferences, alcoholic, sober.
Well, and like Zhongli was a dragon sometimes.
Yeah. So Orobashi may not have always been a snake.
Right.
And I think even with Venti, we know that he's been able to make fake Stanley see real Stanley. So it's also possible that they can project things.
Very true.
Well, yeah, and Guoba used to turn himself into like a bunch of little mini Guobas.
Oh,
that
that's
would run
right.
around.
We just went through that.
Guoba turned himself into Gobitos.
Little dumplings.
Oh my god, not like the little dumpling like short by Pixar. Oh my god, it's so cute. Is that called Bao? Is it Bao Bao?
Bao.
Is that the
It's just
Bao?
Bao.
Mhm.
I just wanted to make it double.
Yao Yao.
Yao Yao has Bao Baos on her head. Anyway, Tiff, you mentioned that Orobashi was white. We have these two like conflicting descriptions of Orobashi. And I think they're supposed to be like coming to the surface out of Enkanomiya and like post Enkanomiya. Because in A's story teaser, we see it. Oh, that's another thing. I only saw Orobashi referred to as it. So I'm not sure if Orobashi has a gender either.
No, Osworn Eye actually does describe Orobashi as a he.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of places say it.
Yeah, a lot of places do say it because I was wondering the whole time. I'm like, let's not pull in a pep and misgender Orobashi.
I know.
I will say the constant difference of how Orobashi is used term-wise is very indicative of true knowledge, if you will.
Yeah. It shows that who's telling history.
Yeah.
We've oftentimes said we don't know if we have a reliable narrator, but it's also in a lot of like history. I mean, we see it even in some somewhat current history in our own world, things get changed based on who's telling the story.
Yeah, like Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Like, I know we have a lot of non-American listeners, and we probably have some American listeners that don't honestly know the truth.
About how we massacred.
Yeah.
The truth about Thanksgiving.
Not only was this not even on Thanksgiving, it was so stupid. I can't remember the specific name in which tribe it was, but basically there was a dinner for kind of truce reasons, and then within like a month they killed each other anyway. How American.
Well, and for those who don't know the story taught in school we usually learn that the Native Americans and the Pilgrims from Europe had a good old dinner became besties, like painted their hands into turkeys, and like lived happily ever after.
What? It's painted their hands into turkey.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
never like made a turkey out of your hand with paint?
No.
Really?
I've traced my hand like on a piece of paper and then decorated that.
Yeah, you use that to make the turkey, and then you made feathers.
Well, some people will paint their hand
Yeah.
and then like
Yeah, and
stamp
then
it
put it
on
down,
the
yeah.
paper. Yeah,
Mhm.
instead of tracing
Oh.
it.
Yeah, because then you could do like you make your palm brown, your thumb red, and then you do like a bunch of different cool colors on your fingies.
Sounds like a fun time.
Fun time.
But yeah, so we're not really sure who the reliable narrator is here with Orobashi, especially because we know that the Book of Sun and Moon was not supposed to be seen, and it was. We know that Celestia overall is trying to hide something from us. One of the books we have that talks about Orobashi is actually a Sangonomiyan like folklore book. So folklore versus real lore.
Mhm.
And also Enkanomiya is really like a city lost in the dark sea at this point. People don't go there that often. You know, we have shrine meanings from Watatsumi that have to go there every now and then, but for the most part, unless Enjo is still hanging out down there, it's empty besides the shops.
We have some information too from the Biokoko collection too, which is a book collection that was from down there.
And some of the stories in there, even they're like, we can't spell Istaroth's name, so we're gonna spell it backwards. And there's a lot of like give and take in it. So there's not a lot of like truly trusted lore. And we also know that Irminsul can be fucked with, so who really knows? But anyway, back to a white snake.
The white snake out on the island. Well, it's funny they like bring up you mentioned the fact that there was like a kid who went over to go talk to him, basically to refer back to the Sun Children. They wanted to get rid of that whole thing, like you said, and a kid went over. But if you look at the Oathsworn Eye weapon, you know, you're kind of reading a dialogue between Orobashi and this kid, but there's almost like another kid too. Like somebody else is like, wait a second, are you sure you want to enter into this? Because we learned something else. So, you know, the kid basically tells Orobashi, like, we need help. And Orobashi's like, I don't know if you really want me. I came down here into the deep sea because I couldn't beat the Geo Archon or the Electro Archon. And I bowed out of the Archon War and am basically in exile in the Dark Sea. And then like he finally, like the kid kind of convinces him. And he says, okay, well, you have to swear to this jewel.
Mm-hmm.
There's then this like other kind of voice, and it's either like the kid having their own conversation or it actually was another person. But they're like, have you forgotten what Master Spartacus, his teachings? He told us never to worship a god, only rely on ourselves. And Spartacus was one of the first people to go rise against the Sun Children. And he was, of course, then murdered. He was put in jail and probably murdered. He's one of the Sun Shades that we meet as well. But like there's this other kid who's kind of maybe or maybe not there, but like the main kid was just like, yeah, no, I'm gonna do it. Like, let's go. Put my hand on my Bible and swear it out.
Yeah, and the Oathsworn Eye, which was stored in the Danishi Mikoshi, by the way, like that's where it was just kept for whatever reason. Maybe that was Orobashi's way of being like, because I'm assuming the weapon, since it's called an eye and the jewel looked like two eyes, that maybe this is that jewel. I find it interesting that Orobashi was like, yeah, fuck the Sun Children, my eye with my oath to this kid is going here instead because I'm taking over and we're not killing children anymore.
Well, also, like, what is the oath? Because it seems like, depending on like where you're looking, there's kind of two different variations of why Orobashi was sort of cursed in a way, and why the people of Enkanomiya were also cursed. And one of the main accounts is that when Orobashi basically fled from the Archon War after realizing that he wasn't going to be able to take down Zhongli or A, and he just sort of went to hide in a cave, that was seen as some kind of betrayal to Celestia, and that he was essentially cursed because of that, and that he then had an oath that he would eventually have to fulfill to Celestia, which of course happens when he takes the people of Enkanomiya up to the surface and basically creates Watatsumi. And then another account is that he was sort of cursed because of his exposure to Before Sun and Moon, which got him and the people of Enkanomiya cursed because of 4 counts of the sin of profanity and 8 counts of the sin of deceiving living souls. And in that account, the heavenly principles allowed Orobashi to take on the responsibility and absolve the people of Enkanomiya via his own sacrifice, so that, you know, when he goes to the surface and basically picks a fight with A, he was really doing that in service to the people of Watatsumi to save them and get them back into the good graces of Celestia, and to also fulfill his oath that was owed to Celestia.
It's very similar to Aegeria and Focalors with the Oceanids and the people of Fontaine. Because we know that, well, Aegeria just was like, this is your problem now, Focalors. I'm going to go become a puddle. And Focalors decided to make Farina the fake Archon. And she decided to, in the end, yeet herself and give up the Archon throne to let Neuvillette have the complete control again, in order to let her people live. Because otherwise, the people of Fontaine were going to become one with the primordial sea again. So it's interesting that we have these 2 gods, one became an Archon, one didn't, that are willing to take on the weight of their issues for the people.
And yeah, we don't really know for sure what caused the actual curse. Was it just being exposed to Before Sun and Moon, or was it when he ran away from the Archon War?
Yeah.
I would even say there's a third possibility. There's a seal that keeps Enkanomiya where it is. And he must have broken through a seal to get into the Dark Sea. And we know that the Dark Sea is considered a godless land, similar to Khaenri'ah. It's considered a place where the reigns of Celestia cannot reach. So I almost wonder, too, if it's not that he ran away from the Archon War, but it's that he broke this seal and ran away to a place that gods aren't supposed to be.
Yeah, like he went into forbidden territory.
He definitely was like, oh shit, I need to bail out of here and really like be off the map.
And I wanted to go back to what you were saying about this oath that he made with the people of Enkanomiya, because they weren't exactly thrilled at first. Like Tiff said, they were remembering Spartacus's teachings, and he was really the person who resisted the Sun Children the most.
Mm-hmm.
And he sounds just like Kaching. He's like, we shouldn't have a god. Humans can do it. Blah, blah, blah. Except that guy's seeing child sacrifice. I don't think Kaching is seeing that unless she's trying to sacrifice child with a knee.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of resistance, and Orobashi was ready to walk away. He wanted to respect the people of Enkanomiya and whatever they wanted. He wasn't going to force himself on them. But that's when they decided to make this oath, and he stayed to help them. And he helped them scare away the Vashops, and he helped them learn how to farm before he did eventually bring them up to the surface.
Well, I think his oath is actually some kind of oath that he made with Celestia.
It's technically not an oath. It's a death sentence.
Yeah.
One of the things I was really interested in is how Celestia and kind of the influence of Celestia has fucked over Orobashi. Enjo says, the only thing I do know at the moment is that the Great Serpent was sentenced to death by Celestia for accidentally reading this book.
Yeah, there's no accident there.
I mean, true, but
He had to take out his little snake hands, put on his little snake monocle, open up the book.
His little T-Rex arms.
His little T-Rex arms, like, doo-doo.
it's like, how could he? But I mean, it was a stone tablet. He didn't have to have arms. It was just on one tablet. But the idea that how the hell did Celestia fucking know he read it? That's my question. I'm guessing now they have eyes in the Dark Sea, when in reality, I've been under the impression that Enkanomiya was one of the only places that Celestia can't see, because it's in the Dark Sea.
I feel like wherever Enkanomiya sank, it's like that one like propped up area in the Dark Sea.
Ooh, okay, so it's like on the surface.
Because they know what's going on down there. I mean, they sank it.
Maybe Istaroth snitched.
That's also possible. Or Istaroth left like a tunnel open, and that's also how Orobashi got in.
Yeah, or it could even just be that while they don't have jurisdiction down there, but it's not that they don't know what's going on, their power doesn't make it down that far. Like, think about like when we went through the event with the lady who was the paddles. She could only go so far from the paddles before she lost her like juice.
Yeah.
The paddle juice.
Which was such a weird reference because I can't remember one word of what any of those were. The little paddle guys.
I know what you're talking. It was a yokai.
Yeah, yes, yokai. Thank you. She was a yokai who went into the lady.
It was the sauce. Chorizo. Chorizo sauce.
Oh. I thought we were talking about spicy sauce again. I went off topic.
Spicy sauce.
It's too spicy.
Today. Not in the back of the car.
Not in the back of the car.
But, I wanted just to take a step back. So we've gone a little bit over what Enkanomiya was like pre-Orobashi. All we know about Orobashi really pre his descent into Enkanomiya is that he was embarrassed and ashamed that he couldn't beat Zhongli / Makoto A, and he couldn't become an Archon, so he ran away.
I don't know if that's embarrassment or if he's like, you know what? I'm going to cut my losses. I'm going to run.
It is said that he felt like he was being shamed for blasphemy.
But who said so? Who says that?
You're right, but Orobashi seems like an all right type of guy. So I'm going to go with he did feel embarrassed.
Oh, understandable. Yeah.
But one thing Orobashi has when he goes under the ground and, under the sea, whatever you want to call it, he has all of these coral pieces on him. And so while the Oathsworn Eye and A's character story shows Orobashi as a white snake, the Jeweled Branch of a Distant Sea, which is a level up material, I think, for weapons,
yes,
says that these branches were actually gifts to Orobashi when he found his way to Enkanomiya, and that he believed that these different coral pieces made him mighty and gave him power. And specifically, he said he felt like that coral made him powerful beyond comprehension. So he had a power complex when he was decorated.
I mean, everybody feels good when they have a couple jewels on them.
Yes.
What's really interesting, and going back to the idea that Orobashi is a white snake versus a dragon, when looking at the history of Japanese culture and how white snakes will symbolize certain things, they can symbolize bringers of fortune. They're messengers of Bianzietian, which is the goddess of eloquence, speech, art, and learning, which is kind of key for this. But they're associated with water deities. And what else do we know can be a dragon but does not fly? A water dragon. And perhaps Orobashi was always seen as a snake when he was on land, because that makes sense. Dragons can fly. And only a snake is very terrestrial. It cannot move from the ground. But when you put Orobashi in the Dark Sea in this new type of realm, and he's being worshipped and kind of elevated to this status, he does kind of become a water deity, a water god, and therefore a water dragon.
I almost feel like Orobashi was trying to be a dragon. He wanted to feel like a dragon, because in Coral Branch of a Distant Sea, which is another one of the levels of that ascension material, it describes him as fluorescent and covered in a variety of colored coral, which makes me think of a dragon with all the scales. It makes me think of Dragon Tales very specifically.
Dragon Tales.
For anyone who watched Dragon Tales, which was a PBS kid show, and they held this beautiful scale, or even Rainbow Fish, whichever one you want to go with. They basically, for people who haven't seen it, these two kids hold this beautiful sparkly scale, and they say something and it brings them into a world with dragons.
They say, I wish with all my heart to fly with dragons in a land apart.
That's what Al says every morning.
True.
Every morning. But what I think is really interesting about all these things about Orobashi and his coloring and how he looks in these corals is that he had all these beautiful corals, and then he used said corals to bring the people of Enkanomiya out of the water and into Watatsumi. And part of his coral helped create what we now see as Watatsumi Island. And so it would make sense that when we see Orobashi fighting A, he is white. He has lost all of his beautiful coral. He might at that point know that death is near because he has an oath with Celestia or has been cursed by Celestia, whatever it might be. And I also think it's a really interesting display of his character. You know, he goes from this like ashamed god looking for power to someone willing to give up what makes him powerful for his people.
He also somehow uses his coral to suppress the baptismal bishops, which this coral is like very magical. I mean, it can somehow suppress the bishops, but it can also be a ladder in the middle of a water vortex.
And also be the best jewels for a snake to wear to look good.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't he research the Vishops and then that's where the blood corals come from? Blood branch corals?
Yeah, they come from his body.
He's like, I've run out of enough corals. Let me grow some on these other dragonish kind of guys.
Oh, well, so he has the coral growing on his body, but when he puts on his lab coat and goes into science mode, he would do experiments on the baptismal bishops to try to figure them out. And part of that experimenting involved grafting his coral onto their bodies, which they weren't able to do at first because it took them a while to figure out why it wouldn't work, which is that their bodies would reject it because the bishops are beings from the light realm or the elemental realm, and gods like Orobashi are of the human realm, technically. So those things are kind of at odds with each other. So it was very difficult for them to actually get the coral to graft onto the bishop bodies. But they were eventually successful at doing it.
Originally, they thought that the grafting wasn't a success because Orobashi's blood was like too strong or something like that. And then when they figured it out, I feel like Orobashi just was like, yeah, we're done. We don't need to do anything else. And our experiments are ending, which they like bred Vishops. And he also talks about the fact that Vishops have like this seed within them that allows them to bring like some sort of elemental power to the surface, which is what makes most of them hydro, but can also make them cryo or electro. And they specifically note that they've never had a Vishop that has picked an elemental seed that resonates with pyro. It almost feels like you're Ash Ketchum going to pick your first Pokemon. You're like, all right, I got the fire Pokemon, the grass Pokemon, or the water Pokemon. But you never get the option of the electric Pokemon to choose from.
There's never a pyro Vishop.
Yeah, and if you think about it, the only other Vishops we've seen are Geo.
Yeah, we've never seen. Is there a Dendro Vishops?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, well, the Geo Vishops, but we know that the Granddaddy one, he can resonate with either, right?
Well, that's a good point that Ishtaha can resonate with Pyro, but is he a Vishop or is he a dragon?
Oh, he's a dragon, yeah. But what about the other Vishop? The Via Vishop that you need for Zhao?
Well, I mean, it would make sense that they can't do pyro because they're technically of the hydro element, right? Even though they can adapt. So it makes sense that they couldn't do pyro, right?
But the Geo Vishop, the one that Tiff's talking about, you can do pyro. They do pyro, electro.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the baptismal bishops and Enkanomiya.
Yes, they're only hydro and cryo. No, electro and cryo.
I think it's interesting that back then there was no pyro, and that could be showing that they've learned, which they do note that after 4 generations of breeding Vishops, they had Vishops that could actually talk at a 12-year-old level.
Oh my God.
And it really worried Orobashi because he was like, these guys are smart. And it's similar to how their bodies also change to allow the grafting to happen. So he was starting to get really scared. And his main fear was that the Hydro Sovereign would be reborn with them as a human, because that was the prophecy, was that the dragon Sovereign of the water would be born into a human. And he says, we must not let that happen in Enkanomiya. So I think he was like, if we're getting these guys over here to talk at a 12-year-old level after 4 generations, what are we going to do if we got the dragon of all dragons down here and he's human? We're going to be fucked.
So wouldn't the dragon... Oh, that'd be funny because like So the Dragon Sovereign, basically, they were afraid of making Nouvelette.
Yeah, they were afraid of making Nouvelette and him like overthrowing Orobashi. But there was one other thing that was really interesting. Two things that were really interesting in the notes about the experiments. One is that they make sure to note that no Vishops were killed during these experiments. And they make note of it at the very end. They say something along the lines of like, no one was hurt and we let the Vishops go and live their life. The end. Like, I don't know who's writing this book.
PETA.
But who?
PETA.
PETA, no! Stop! But they make note in the beginning that they are getting rid of all old records prior, basically, to Orobashi coming in, suggesting that they might have been experimenting on Vishops pre-Orobashi. They mention, this is a direct quote from the book, that dossier serial numbers shall no longer use the categories of alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and epsilon, which use the ancient Watatsumi tongue. Instead, we shall use earth, water, fire, wind, ether, and void going forward. It's interesting because you're missing cryo and dendro, and instead you have these two new elements. We know about the void realm, ironically enough, so curious if that's a power. And then, of course, I had to look up what exactly ether was, not our twin, or not the traveler, depending on who you
Not
play.
ether.
It's basically, to me, it sounds like imaginary and abyssal.
I was thinking imaginary. So an ether is one of two things. This is from the Webster Dictionary, guys. I cracked it out. It's either a pleasant smelling, colorless, volatile liquid that's highly flammable, or it's a clear sky. The upper reaches of air beyond the clouds.
Oh, yeah, if you reach to the ether. Okay, yeah.
So I think it's the first definition of a liquid that's highly flammable. And I say that because in Enkanomiya, we have those things that look like gas spills.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I wonder if that's the ether that they're talking about.
The gas spills. What do you mean?
They're like floating things that like are iridescent and like you're never really sure what's going to happen with them.
And you can like float with them?
These are just like random little, like they look like oil spills, but in the air. I don't know how else to
in the air.
You know what an oil spill looks
yeah,
like.
I know
It's
exactly.
pretty.
No, I get it. I'm just not picturing it.
Which is also stupid. Why are oil spills so pretty? Or am I the only one that thinks an oil spill looks pretty?
Well, because it's iridescent and it's all shimmery.
I should say an oil spill on asphalt is pretty.
Not the ones in the ocean that are killing all the fishies.
Yeah, they just look black and gooey. and they're sad. Oh, maybe that's the goop from the Narcissus and Crew.
Aw, Carl.
Aw, Carl, Brandon's favorite. Maybe that's really where Gwyneth Paltrow got the name for her.
Oh, 100%. 100%. No, but when I read that, I really thought, when I saw ether, immediately thought of the Kavrena light element that is described in parts of Sumeru, you know?
In Pariland with the bird, right?
Yeah. And how it sort of cancels out the void energy. So I took those last two elements as being light and void.
Which is in Star Rail and Honkai.
Yeah. Yeah. Quantum, imaginary and quantum.
I heard nothing.
Oh, which Welt is imaginary, right? And so is Fancy Don Hung.
Mm-hmm.
Fancy Dong Hong. Dong Hang.
And what's her name? The butterfly chick.
Sela?
Yeah, she's the other one.
Quantum, yeah.
And so's Lynx. I love little Lynx. Me just feeling like I know something about Star Rail. I'm like, Brendan, be proud. Look, I know these things.
So you mean the little circle things that you can go through and you become like almost like a little electro ball and it travels?
No.
Shit, what the hell are you talking about?
The things that look like oil spills
This
in
looks
the
like
air.
an oil spill in the air.
No, wait, that's blue. It's blue.
This is blue.
This isn't blue. The oil spills aren't blue.
What color are they?
I don't know, oil spill color. Like purpley pink, like.
I can't picture what you're describing. Is that supposed to sort of like help you identify where like a puzzle is or something?
I think so.
Like, is that like if you switch it from day to night, does something appear there?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Starting to feel familiar.
So we've gone over a little bit about these experiments and a lot of stuff happening down in Enkanomiya. But then Orobashi decides that he's going to help these motherfuckers see the sun for real.
For reals.
No more god light bulb sunlight. We're getting the real shit.
Taking Phillips right out of business.
Yeah, right out of there. Who needs a light bulb anymore? So he decides he's going to help his people and bring them to the surface. And he uses the coral on his body to create a ladder, a hill, I don't know, but something to help them up. And they create Watatsumi Island. During that time, when they get to the surface, he helps to teach his people how to smelt, which is like making swords and stuff, or is creating stuff to make swords, and how to farm, which, how did he know how to farm? How does he farm?
With his little T-Rex arm.
He's got no arms.
His little
No
T-Rex
arms.
arm.
I did not see T-Rex arms in the photo.
There are no arms.
And now he's got his little overalls and a straw hat on. He's got a whole fucking wardrobe.
He has a little hoe. He's like
What'd you call me?
tilling the soil.
He's the inspiration for the first field tiller of Conria. But we find out that, oh fuck, I wanted to mention this and I totally forgot. I think it's also, just to go back underground, sorry, I know I just brought us like above ground, but it's like, I'm gonna take it back. The people of Enkanomiya worshipped a second god. They worshipped Ouroboros, who is described as a scaleless imaginary serpent.
Like one serpent wasn't enough. They're like, we need a second one.
Well, that predates Orobashi, like by a significant amount of time, right?
Well, it's confusing because it suggested that Ouroboros was there before Orobashi.
Mm-hmm.
They were all sun children in and out.
Yeah, they were, praying to a light bulb. So I'm curious where Ouroboros comes in, and I'm almost curious if Ouroboros isn't real.
Well, I mean, doesn't it say imaginary serpent?
Right. Well, my first thought, Brandon, you'll be so proud, was the imaginary tree or like an imaginary element.
Uh-huh.
You went to Honkai, is what you're saying?
Yeah, you look at my notes, man. But
I can't read the word Honkai. I thought you knew that.
I didn't write Honkai, so it's good. You can read it still.
Think of it as a Kavrina. That's in Genshin.
Yeah, but I was curious too if maybe they had kind of made up a god, like maybe even the children had made up a god that they were like praying to because they didn't want to pray to the light bulb and get killed.
I don't want to die.
So I'm gonna make up a snake god.
Please worship this instead.
Which almost makes me feel like, was Orobashi sent to Enkanomiya on purpose? Like, was Orobashi purposely not able to defeat the two future archons and everything for a reason? Like, is there a fate laid out for Orobashi that Orobashi cannot control?
Yes.
Could be.
Because he's sentenced to death. Also, a bit more on Ouroboros. That is before Enkanomiya, I think, fell into the sea.
Oh, like that was their first god type of thing?
Yes. And it's also very vague, and some people think Ouroboros is actually Oropisu for Orpheus.
Huh. I just took it as like a legend of like maybe Orobashi was thought of as like pre-surfacing, like with the coral, and Ouroboros was like after he got rid of all of his coral.
That would be interesting. Like a not a mutation, a metamorphosis, if you will.
Yeah, because it doesn't say Ouroboros is smooth.
Which would make sense because Orobashi sacrificed basically everything to help the people of Enkanomiya and bring them to Watatsumi, or create Watatsumi for them.
Well, I'm gonna disagree because I believe I read something that said that they eventually stopped worshipping Ouroboros and Orobashi was their only like god.
Oh, okay.
I do like this idea though that it's possible that Ouroboros was their OG god, and then when they sank into the sea, they couldn't find them or couldn't follow them, whatever it may be, or they died. I'm sure there were god casualties when the primordial one and the second who came fought. I mean, they sunk a whole city nation.
Maybe that's why Orobashi went there.
Yeah, maybe Ouroboros is actually like Orobashi's parent.
Yeah, or like twin or something.
Yeah, or like the kid was so eager to get Orobashi is because they were like, wait a second, like this guy looks like our old god.
Yeah, or I've heard this story
Yeah.
because they were probably too young to know the god, or so many years later.
Why are these people so obsessed with snakes?
Shanks.
Sneaky snake.
The reason I brought us back underground is because above ground, it's actually suggested that more people than just Watatsumi worshipped Orobashi. It is suggested through the sacred Sakura cleansing ritual that other places in Inazuma also worshipped him. And that's because when you learn about the Sacred Sakura cleansing, which we have an episode on too, but I don't know if we talked about this because this seems newer to me, but you have to cleanse all the trees and the shrines in order to make everything Gucci again. But the shrine maidens of the past used to also go to Watatsumi to cleanse the shrines there. So it's suggested that the shrine maidens of Narukami knew that they had to go to Watatsumi as well. So I just thought that was a little interesting that there's this double entendre of things going on. Also, when Watatsumi came to the surface, and Makoto didn't really bother them right away. It wasn't until they ruffled feathers that the Electro Archon was like, yeah, no, you gotta go.
Yeah, because at first they came above ground and they kind of just left to themselves and didn't bother. Like they kind of stayed within their bounds and they weren't like kind of doing anything. So they were like, okay, whatever, you guys can be here. They weren't like outwardly fighting against them. Yeah, I don't think that they were, also like going over and like kissing their feet or anything like that. But they were just like, all right, more people, whatever. Here you go. Yeah, they are dying. They had famine.
And that was when Orobashi decided kind of the only way to keep my people alive, to keep them alive, is to at least take territory that can produce farmland. And so he invaded, and that got him killed, which I find kind of heartbreaking because we know he couldn't defeat he couldn't defeat the Archons before. I think he knew this was a suicide mission.
Yeah, and he didn't decide to do it. They, like, his people made him do it.
Well, he did make the decision, though, because when they realized the ecosystem started failing for a while, and the people kept repeatedly being like, Orobashi, we need to do something about this. And they started to suggest a takeover of Yashiori Island, which is the next island over. And Orobashi, because of all of his trauma from the Archon War, was like, no. Because like Al said, he knew that if he did it, he would die and that he would be a goner. But at some point, he finally said to his people, yes, we're going to do this. They did listen to him, which was impressive. Like they didn't have a mutiny despite the fact that there was famine and stuff like that. So people really like loved and adored him.
If only they had listened to Squanto and, put fish with their seeds.
Yeah.
Fertilize the land.
But this is actually where our second big family comes in. So we all know about the Enkanomiya clan, but this is where we start to learn a little bit more about the Yuna clan. And the Yuna clan of Watatsumi Island actually led the first navy of Watatsumi, and they were one of the only few noble families that really came out from Enkanomiya and survived. You get all this information from the Moon's Moon weapon and the set that comes with it.
There was a part of me that was just waiting for you to get so mad about saying Moon's Moon again.
No, I love saying Moon's Moon. It's so fun.
The last time you were like, Moon's Moon, the Moon Moon.
The Moon. Moon.
Moon.
I was trying to not dive into this too much during the Kokomi episode, but it's really interesting. We have these sisters of Moon and Ayame, and Moon is a shrine maiden in Watatsumi, but also is called a whale song master, like whatever the fuck that means. And what? It's true.
Whatever that means.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, there's no description except for the fact that she ends up. Well,
they can talk to whales.
She has a best friend who is a whale.
A 900-year-old whale.
A 900-year-old blind whale who commands 500 narwhals and 500 humpback whales, and also fish and jellyfish and other things.
Yeah, and she would ride on its back, which is hilarious.
I need an image of it. It's like child's wet dream. That's all he wants to do. down with his whale friend.
I'm gonna just keep my mouth shut there.
I'm picturing Moon as like the little kid in Free Willy.
And also, back behind Watatsumi, we have that broken up house. And that's actually a shrine for Moon. And it got destroyed. They assume it was named for her after she died, but they're not really sure why it was destroyed. Was it just forgotten? That type of thing. Her sister, Ayame, welded the Wavebreaker fin, which is the pole arm in that weapon set. And she actually owned a palace, which is the pool in Sugetsu Pool. It's that really terrible puzzle you have to do in Watatsumi. That was where she lived, and she vibed over there. She was a diver. She sold pearls to make some cash money. And the two of them took on this guy named Aku. And Aku was basically the apprentice of Moon. It's also suggested that Aku and Moon were lovers, which is fun. He has the claymore in that set, which is called Akumaru, which is his full name, but they called him Aku for short. It's not just me being lazy, I swear. But him and Moon were in love. He was the one who went with Moon and Ayame and Orobashi. They led the fleet of naval ships over to Yashiori to take it over, and they succeeded. And Aku was put in charge of their new settlement in Yashiori. He actually has something called the Formation Estate, which is a domain over near the mines of Tataragami. And once it was his, he basically created himself a home. He invaded more of Yashiori than he probably should have. They started to farm and do their thing. During this battle, Moon killed Sasayori, who was a Tengu. Not a Tegu. A Tegu is a lizard. Who is a Tengu. And remember, a Tengu is what Kuchosera is as well. And Sasayori was killed by Moon.
And Sasayori is one of A's blanket friends.
Yes, it's the red mask blanket friend. And A gets word of this. And this is when A is like, yeah, I'm sick of this shit. And A goes over and brings an army to basically settle the people of Watatsumi, get them off Yashiori, and get rid of Orobashi. So she kills Orobashi. And as she kills Orobashi, she uses the titty sword, and she makes a huge gorge that we see on Yashiori Island that is always trying to electrocute us. Moon is killed. Aku is killed.
Yeah, Aku dies with Orobashi. They actually die together in the titty sword attack.
And Ayame's fate is unknown.
Yeah, Ayame disappears into the sea, basically.
And who knows? Maybe Ayame is still alive.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe she's out riding a whale. Yeah, so Sasayori dies, Ku and Orobashi die together, Moon and Moon's massive whale friend die.
Oh, the whale died?
Yeah, they die by a group of Sasayori's subordinates that basically catch them off guard.
Oh.
And then Ayame disappears into the sea.
Now, is there a thought that Ayame is still alive or descendants of Ayame are somewhere to be found?
I don't know. I couldn't find anything about that. It really just kind of leaves it at her disappearing into the water.
There's some fan theories that maybe Ayame is alive somewhere, but there's nothing really solid.
It just seems like to leave it so open-ended, I guess it could also be what, everybody can't die all the time? That sounds bad.
That's not how Feeny feels.
Everyone will be murdered, and it will be glorious and sad. I mean, the thing is, we assume that the people of Enkanomiya all are human. We know that the Sangonomiya clan is human, because Kokomi became a divine priestess not long ago, and she was young. So, and she still looks young. I mean, that means nothing, but...
Well, some of them are Tengu or yokai.
Not the people of Enkanomiya that came to Watatsumi, the OG.
Oh, true. Although some of them are reptilian.
Well, I mean, who's a reptile? Is Shangyun a reptile? That's always the theory. My poor boy.
Does he have snake eyes? I don't think he does.
Yeah, look at him.
Oh, he does? I gotta look at a close-up.
He has the most snake-like eyes out of any of the non-snakes.
Ooh. Maybe he's related to Sumi.
He's the most snakish, non-snake, snaky snake.
Well, there's a lot of rumors that maybe they are... I mean, headcanons are a thing, right? Fans love to write their own lore. And I'm one of them. I am not going to lie. So I know there's a lot of like fan theories and fan headcanons that maybe Shang-Yun and Shenhe are descendants of some sort of lizard people. And that's also why they have their quote unquote curses. I know we've talked a lot in the past about Shenhe and Shang-Yun and how they both seem to be cursed. And during the poetry event, Zhao even mentions to Shang-Yun that maybe it's not a curse, but it's a blessing. And we learned in that event that like the Spring Fairy can bless people like Diona, even though Diona sees that as a curse. So it seems like gods and otherworldly beings can give a gift to you, whether you like it or not, in this world. And it's really up to the holder to decide if it's a blessing or a curse.
Or herpes.
Or herpes. I feel like herpes is just always a curse, unless you're like trying to be like a super spreader.
So the gods are like, give you a little gift, something to remember me by.
Here's a cold sore. And you'll get it every time you're stressed for the rest of your life. And Shang-Yun just constantly has one because he's trying to keep his yang energy intact. But yeah, there's a lot of theories about that. And I think it's interesting because after the poetry event, we got a lot of curses. We learned about Farina. We got more information on Shang-Yun and Diona because of the Spring Fairy. It just seems like there's curses and blessings all around in Teyvat, whatever the frick that means. But anyway, cursings and blessings aside, Orobashi was #cursed when he died, but he felt like he was finally dying to what he was supposed to die for, type of thing.
Yeah.
But they say that Orobashi actually died with his gaze fixed upon the heavens. So he was like, hey, bitches, you finally got what you wanted. I read a book. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry for reading. It's fundamental.
Like, sorry, I was trying to be educated.
He finally takes his monocle off of his face.
He's like, my time has come. But also, they try to keep the true reason for Orobashi's death a secret. And so there are rumors that are still around to this day in Teyvat. The Celestia ordered his death. But the most commonly accepted theory in Teyvat about Orobashi is that he attacked Yashiori Island for its resources and had to pay the cost. So it's similar to when we talked about Cinnamon. It's like, which story do you want to believe here?
Right.
And after Orobashi was killed, the people of Watatsumi were told to get the fuck back and go back to Watatsumi Island, not underground. And and Makoto let them continue to worship Orobashi despite the fact that he was dead, as long as they promised to follow the rules of the shogunate. And that went real well until the Vision Hunt Decree.
That went real well.
It lasted a while.
It did. Quite a while, actually.
And for the most part, Watatsumi wasn't really dealing with the rest of Inazuma for the most part either.
They're kind of off on their own.
But the other thing that happened because of Orobashi's death, besides Watatsumi, being pushed back just to Watatsumi, was the Tataragami curse. So if you go to Yashiori Island, you can still see the skeletal remains of Orobashi, which, sometimes I forget the snakes have skeletons.
They're like, thanks, fiends.
They're so slithery. The fact that they have a spine is wild. I expect no vertebrae.
What do you mean?
No vertebrae for you.
I mean, a jellyfish doesn't have a vertebrae, and they seem to have more structure than a snake.
Well,
no,
they don't even have eyes.
It's a pool noodle.
It's pretty awesome anatomy, actually.
And just to say, you don't need to have a spine to have eyes.
I mean, I'm just saying, if you...
It helps.
They give you the anatomy lesson.
I mean, a lot of things would help, but,
They're an invertebrate.
I'm just going to show you an invertebrate.
Oh, no.
But yes, there's this giant skeleton left over from the snake god.
Which one? Because we find these damn things all over the place.
From Uabushi. No, from Orobashi. So, Orobashi. Listen. So this actually becomes a situation. Right. Oh my god, Tim.
I snorted. It made me laugh even more.
So Tataragami is another one of those things where you're like, is it a blessing or is it a curse? Because the Tataragami, which is like similar to Zhao's karmic cadet, is made of Orobashi's will and power. So it's like, sounds like a blessing, but then the shit it does makes it a curse.
It's not.
Yeah, the symptoms of it are very bad.
Because even if you think about, like, from our last episode when we were talking about Havria, when she was murdered and all of, like, she was like kind-hearted and meek and stuff like that, and her like God remains like fucked shit up.
Yeah, it blew
Turn
up.
people
It blew
into
people into
salt.
salt Pompeii.
Salt Pompeii, yeah.
From what we know, especially with like what Zhao has said about God Remains, what Zhongli has said about God Remains, they are powerful and can be fucking horrifying if left unchecked, from what they say. So like if you don't have a, say, Yaksha cleanup crew, it's gonna actively fuck up. Think of it like rotting flesh, right?
Oh.
At first, not so gross. After a couple of months, really gross.
Ow, how often do you think about rotting flesh?
It's Florida. I gotta.
Ooh, ooh.
Can you get a Yaksha cleanup crew in the Yellow Pages?
I wish. I fucking wish.
You probably can, but they're so far back in the Yellow Pages because they're the Yaksha cleaning crew that no one ever uses.
Gotta go all the way to Y. No one goes past D.
AAA Cleaning Co.
The Tataragami curse, it's like, it almost reminds me of Elazar, but it kind of sounds worse. The symptoms of it include bleeding from orifices,
I love that.
fevers, migraines, rashes, dizziness, weakness, insanity, auditory hallucinations about an unnamed
Maybe
god.
I've been exposed to Tataragami.
Is that what the little voices are telling you?
Is this where we get to bathe in our blood?
No!
You dream of 18 pairs of blood red eyes, thousands of sharp venomous fangs, and countless mouths and numberless tongues ever thirsting after blood.
No, but I'm thinking that's Ouroboros. Orobashi's evil twin.
Maybe.
Honestly, it reminds me of yellow fever.
That's a
Like the yellow fever, like 17, 18 yellow fever.
Yeah, like the yellow fever that created the idea of 6 Feet Under and zombies and all that jazz.
Oh.
So like, I don't know. I went on a ghost tour when I was in Savannah, Georgia. So I know a lot about yellow fever for no reason. But when yellow fever hit in Savannah, they basically would just have mass graves because there were just so many people dying. And when you had yellow fever and you were getting ready to die, you would fall into a coma. But because the technology wasn't good, they didn't know you were in a coma and they thought you were dead. So they would bury you in these mass graves. But the mass graves weren't very deep yet.
nope.
Because when people got buried and their bodies started to lose oxygen, the adrenaline would kick in and they would climb out to their graves and start crawling around and then die. So that's where the idea of zombies comes from, at least in the US. And also that's when they started burying bodies 6 feet under because then they wouldn't crawl out. And the other thing they started doing was they started to tie strings to the fingers of the bodies.
For the bell, the little ringing bells. Yep.
Yeah, they would tie a string to their finger, and above ground, 6 feet above them, would be a bell. And that's when they started to have night guards walking around doing like a night watch in graveyards because they'd be listening for a bell to see if someone was alive.
Vampire myth and stuff like that in the United States actually came from that as well.
The New England vampires.
Edward Cullen?
Yeah. They were all shiny, you know.
All shiny.
They all sparkled with the blood coming out of their orifices.
It was just cool.
God.
But you have a very interesting point, though. Like, we've taken so much IRL and made sense of it. And that's something that's something people have done around the world forever.
Yeah.
So why not in Teyvat?
Exactly. I mean, going back to the vampire thing in like Eastern Europe, one, they would have, the coffin cages bullshit. But they would also, if suspected, dig up people, and then they didn't understand that the decaying process shrinks the skin first, so it looks like your nails are growing and your hair is getting longer. And that's not true. We're just decomposing.
Ooh, sorry, I'm thinking about it too much. My mind is like, ooh. But Brandon, tell me more about the orifices.
Oh, okay.
Teach me about the orifices, please.
No, that's really all I had is that blood comes out of them.
And you make a good point though that it does sound similar to Elazar, and it makes you wonder if Orobashi's will was because he had forbidden knowledge from reading of Sun and Moon. That is this also like a forbidden knowledge type deal that he's cursing the people with?
Also, what is this god that people start hearing voices of who they just call him and like has 18 pairs of blood red eyes?
A spider.
Cool.
Not a spider, not a cockroach.
Oh no.
Do you guys know the story of General Lord Masahito in Inazuma?
No.
Okay, first off, I hope I'm saying his name right. But basically, in Yashiori, they created these wards that were supposed to keep like the Tataragami curse in check. It made it like bearable for people to go out there. Those wards got broken. We'll get into that later because that's also a fucking crazy story. But General Lord Masahito is actually Kujo Sara's older adoptive brother. So she has two brothers, him and the one who's currently in charge of the Kujo clan. That guy that we see in the 1A storyline who's like very nerd. No, in Ayato storyline, who's trying to marry that girl. I forget. I think his name is Kuji or something like that. Like, but I don't remember 100%. Anyway, that aside, he is sent to Yashiori Island and he is there in like a Kujo encampment. And he writes back to his father and is like, hey, this is crazy. People are losing their minds. People are bleeding out of all the holes. Like, things aren't good. And his father was basically like, suck it up, bitch. Get over it.
Bathe in your blood.
Yeah, he was like, bathe in the blood. I don't care what you do. He didn't believe him. And what he actually wrote a note, and you can find this letter around Yashiori Island, that if he didn't make the situation better, they were going to send Sara there, and that Sara would be put in charge instead of him.
You know you're a badass when a threat is, Sara's going to come here.
Your adopted baby sister's coming in, so get out of the way. But also she's a Tengu, so I feel like that's not fair. So he gets stuck there because everyone is being affected by the Tataragami curse. And he also, which is curious, is he didn't agree with the Vision Hunt degree, but he fought for the shogunate anyway because that was his family's way. And that's when he wrote to his father and was like, hey, I'm here, but like this shit sucks. And eventually they did send a crew to come check on him. And for the most part, that crew went MIA. And you can find notes that tell the story of this group of people. But the army slowly started to go missing and they found Higi Village. As we all know, that's where we find our bestie Choji, who needs all of the freaking crystals, like the dragon crystal, whatever they're called.
The crystal marrow.
Crystal marrow, yeah, that's stupid stuff. And they go there and they send one of their people in to find the chief. And that person never comes back. And this guy's writing in his little like notes and he's like, if they don't send this guy back, I'm going to send someone else. He's like, all right, so I sent the second person. If neither of my people come back, we're going to go in and kill this guy and basically like accuse him of treason. Well, they all go missing. They're never seen again. The chief at the time was Chief Wajizu. And we basically find out that he killed a ton of people and sacrificed as many as he could to that tooth-snaked demon that people are seeing in their nightmares, including himself.
Yeah, he's like full-blown cray-cray.
Yeah, totally lost his mind. And Chief Washizu also has his own notes. And we find these notes during a questline called Sinister Instructions. And we find out, that this demon thing is very fond of Choji's mother. And when she goes to Sumeru, they don't know that. And they're like, we need to find her because he needs her. And this demon's only referred to as he. And we find out that they actually sacrificed both of those delegates from this army that went in, that they were totally sacrificed. It says their age and everything. And it also says that they found an outlander and that they were going to try to sacrifice us as well. They said we were getting ready to take the bait.
Damn.
So he kills a ton of people and tries his best to make this god happy, basically. So people really be losing their mind out there.
Meanwhile, Choji's father, who was like a pirate, he gets infected by Tataragami, but then recovers, I believe, while traveling with his fellow pirates. And then he just basically decides not to come back.
Yep.
And then Choji's mother had Tataragami symptoms, but then, found out that it, quote unquote, flowed freely inside her, whatever that means. And it wasn't fatal. So she just gets on a boat to Sumeru and leaves her child behind without saying where she's going.
Like, what a bitch. What a fucking dick.
In the hope that, the academia can help her. Meanwhile, Choji thinks that she's going to Snezhnaya. So you're like watching Choji the whole time, like figure out how to get to Snezhnaya. Meanwhile, you find out later that his mother actually went in the opposite direction to Sumeru. It's very sad. I feel really bad for Choji, even though he's kind of an asshole.
I know, but he's like a cute asshole. He tries.
Yeah.
It's a cute asshole.
I did just want to let you guys know that Lord Masahito, the Kujo guy, Sara's older brother, later on, they realized that he was right. And that shit was getting real there. And when his dad's bad behavior gets shown, with the clan working with the Fatui and everything, they actually offer him to be the head of the Kujo clan. And he says, no, I've done enough of this.
He's out.
Yeah, and then he lets his brother take over instead.
So did he help create the wards that held Tataragami back?
No. So from my understanding is the wards have been there for a while, like longer than Masahito's probably been alive. The wards were broken while he was there, is my understanding. And the wards were broken because of this dumbass named Nathan. I was so mad because I thought it said Nathan. So Nathan.
Nathaniel.
No, just Nathan. Like Nathan. This is the founder of Nathan's Hot Dogs. Fucking shit up.
He's from Coney Island?
No, he's from Mondstadt. Close enough. So Nathan says that he's from Mondstadt and that, in Mondstadt, they really believe in freedom. So for whatever reason, this quote unquote Mondstadtian finds himself in Watatsumi and says that he wants to join the Watatsumi army because the freedom roars within him, basically. And he wants to help fight the good fight and help free these people. So he joins the war, and he actually befriends a ton of Orobashi fanatics within this resistance movement. And he's like, hey, why don't we go destroy the wards on Yashiori Island so we can let all of Orobashi's power, like, truly reign free? Because he loves freedom, because he's quote-unquote from Mondstadt.
Beans, is he from Mondstadt by any chance?
Quote-unquote. Quote-unquote.
Like, do you love freedom or do you just love anarchy?
You'll find out soon. So he befriends all these fanatics and they decide that they are going to go break the wards and let Orobashi reign free. So these fanatics, though, they really love Kokomi. So they make sure that Kokomi is not aware of what's happening because A, they know she wouldn't approve. And B, if shit gets real and some drama goes down with the shogunate, they don't want Kokomi to know about it and take the fall. So when we go into the Delusion Factory to fight Scaramouche, we actually find papers that say that Nathan is a fucking Fatui. And he's not from Mondstadt.
Wow.
He's just a Fatui guy. And that he was sent there specifically by Piero to elongate the war between the shogunate and the resistance. So he was just like, yeah, let's break these wars. Freedom. Now, of course, we pass out in the Delusion Factory. So we never get to grab this paper and tell anyone about it. But once Yaimiko rescues us and also tells the resistance what's going on, because Yaimiko likes the resistance, they go and they check out the domain that we were in, and they also find this paperwork. So they do actually arrest Nathan, and he's currently awaiting trial, whatever that means.
Interesting. I wonder if Hazo threw the book at him.
Yeah.
Probs.
Just imagining Hazo working
Literally
with
throwing a book.
stupid Nathan. And I'm imagining Nathan like with a hot dog suit on.
And Hazo literally throws a book, which is his weapon, at Nathan.
And then Roundhouse kicks him in the face afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then Sino shows up and is like, consider yourself crinkle cut.
Oh
I hate it. I hate it now.
No. Oh my god. Anyway, that is a total side story though about how people are like taking advantage of Orobashi. Like even after he died. You got Nathan over here that's like, I'm gonna use his will and his power to distract and continue a war. And you have honestly the ex-head of the Kujo clan also doing that. One's not really taking Orobashi seriously. The other is like understands his power. It's very curious how Orobashi continues to be an important player.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Tataragami curse is what creates that dark cloud that hovers over the island until you get rid of it.
Oh, you know, it's so fucking annoying.
It is really annoying.
That's like literally the everything in Inazuma kills you. It's mostly at Yashiori Island.
Yeah.
But on top of that, we also have the Mikage Furnace, which is a terrible 9 million year long quest that we have to do with Xavier.
I can still see like I still have the vivid memory of going to that waypoint next to Xavier and gliding down to him time and time and time again. Like, what do you want now?
His hat. I was furious about that hat.
You were. You would always talk about it. That was like the OG hate hat.
Mm-hmm. He hated it. Didn't fit his stupid head.
So the Mikage Furnace was created about 400 years ago, and it was made to smelt, which is creating jade steel. And it was very much mass-produced there up until the time of the shogunate Vision Hunt decree causing the war with the Watatsumi army. So the OG guy in charge, aka the guy before Xavier, was Hanbei, and he really sucked at his fucking job. So Xavier was sent from Fontaine to take over. And basically, Xavier tells us that because of the war and everything going on and the wards being broken, that the furnace has been overexposed to Tataragami, which has really messed up the furnace. It's not doing well. Plus, we find out that the Fatui have been trying to break into this like bubble seal that surrounds it, and they've been succeeding because they want to use the power from there as well. So there's a lot of issues that we have to fix. And it's noted that the shrine maidens in Narukami can actually feel the negative energy of the Tataragami curse from the furnace as well. So there's a lot going on. And we also know that the furnace has had 2 visitors in the years that it was created. We know that Alice visited there pre-war, and she made some adjustments to it, which is honestly just terrifying to know that she could just go up and make adjustments, and she might have messed it up.
Yeah. Nobody stopped her.
And we also know that our favorite cannibal, Dottore, was over there fucking shit up many years ago with Kazua's lineage and Scaramouche's best friend / possible lover.
There's a lot, the quote unquote and slashes were, I think we've hit the limit of them.
No, I'm going to do more of them, so be ready. Everything's quote unquote in this game. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, the furnace has a lot of really important history, and once we fix it, for the most part, things are good over there.
I feel like we go into a lot of that fixing part of it over in the Scaramouche episode that we have as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of prereq episodes, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's all been leading up to this.
Yeah, they just go into more detail. But you want to know something really interesting about the furnace? People actually think, none of you said anything, so I assumed it was a yes.
Yes. I was thinking it in my head. I was like, yes.
I just like started to continue and talk. I was like, so anyway, whatever.
I'm gonna tell you whether you like it or not.
Yeah, basically. So a lot of people think that the furnace is inspired by the Fukushima nuclear plant that is located in Japan. And back in 2011, there was a really bad 9.1 magnitude earthquake there.
cause a tsunami. Totally got some wicked nuclear based plants now.
Yeah, so
Created Godzilla.
no, not Godzilla. It created Nouvellette. And no, so the nuclear power plant there actually had a huge meltdown, and the radiation spread to a lot of the nearby communities, and a lot of people got really sick from that as well. So there's a lot of theories that it might be inspired by that situation.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just thought that was really interesting, because it's interesting that people pulled together from Japan's recent history, when I feel like people would just go to these like bigger moments in time, things that are known more worldly. Like, not for nothing, but my 18-year-old cousin isn't going to know about this furnace meltdown and the earthquake.
What an uplifting episode.
I mean, yeah, orifices.
Bleeding orifices.
Yeah, so from what we understand, in Watatsumi, they still worship Orobashi. That is 100% who Kokomi is like praying to at night when she needs things done. And the one thing that still really connects them to Enkanomiya is that they say it's every several centuries, the Sanganomiya shrine maidens have to perform this ceremony called the Watatsumi Goryo Masuri. And basically at this time, the vibes on Watatsumi are good. And because the vibes are good, they can take advantage of it. And they can go into Enkanomiya and open the seal, get in there, get a piece of the bloodstained coral that Orobashi left there, and then come back up and do this ritual to seal the portal and continue to keep the Baptismal Vashops down below. But they're a little worried because there's only so many coral pieces.
Right. So eventually the bishops are going to be able to escape.
Yes.
And invade Watatsumi.
And invade possibly Teyvat.
I mean, we already have the Geo ones running around.
And we have Rift Hounds. I mean, honestly, nothing is worse than a Rift Hound.
True.
Imagine a Rift Hound Baptismal Vashop duo.
Oh my god, like a crossbreed?
No.
Oh, I wasn't going there, but yeah.
I mean, if the Baptismal Vashops came up on Watatsumi, they'd only have to swim a little way south to get to Tsurumi Island and go meet the fucking Golden Wolf Lord. So they would be besties.
Wow.
It'd be dangerous.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's already happened in the Spiral Abyss.
No, I've never. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't really do Spiral as much as I probably should, but I feel like I've never seen the Golden Wolf Lord in Spiral. But that just might be my skill set. I've never made it that far.
Yeah, I don't know if the actual Wolf Lord is there, but there used to be just like a shit ton of Rift Hounds in one of them. That was awful.
You gotta freeze them. I would use Child and Kaya. Anyway, I know there's a lot of theories about Orobashi, and I know many episodes ago we had a Kirara mail segment where a listener actually had suggested that Orobashi and Dottore could somehow be related. The theory basically was that Dottore is an ass. No. Is that Dottore doesn't show his face, so we don't know what his eyes look like. We only know what, his manga eye looked like. But that they're similar in the fact that they're scientists and experimenty, and it's really the only time we've heard of experimenty scientist people. A lot of people thought that maybe like the ill will of Orobashi lives in Dottore. Some people even thought that Chong might be a reincarnation of Orobashi, or like a cousin.
Right.
Hey, Tataragami like seeped into Dottore. Dotoragami.
No, Tiff.
Tataragami.
Oh no, I hate it. Terrible.
Yeah. That's who's whispering to you to kill people. All goes out back down to Dottore. Yeah.
Because he's the worst.
That he is.
But that's a fan theory that we've heard. Do you guys have any theories?
We kind of touched on one that I had done a lot of reading about, which was, people kind of going back and forth between, was Orobashi fated? Was his death fated through Celestia? Or was it because he read the book. But it goes even further into the idea of when did he read the book? Did he read the book prior to ruling over the Enkanomiya people, or was it before that? So basically the whole idea is like, is he being, are the people of Enkanomiya and Watatsumi actually being cursed as well, or is it just Orobashi? So one of the things is it's kind of inferred that if you lost in the Archon War, you just don't exist anymore. Like, you're not written about. Nobody really knows. I mean, unless you hire Zhang Li to go bring you down into a salt mine, you don't really know much about anything that's going on down there. And people don't really remember their gods. So it's like, did Orobashi have his own people? Do those people exist anymore? And did they forget about him? Or did he actually, because like he's known as like the god who lost everything. Did he actually lose those people? Like, because he left, is that part of his shame? Is because he let them all down when he couldn't do the fight anymore? So if his death is fated by Celestia because of reading the book, whether or not it was before or after, it's kind of like which people are also being affected by it. And, you know, you can look at it from like you mentioned before about Yashiori going there for resources versus, you know, did Celestia be like, you got to die somehow by the Electro Archon? We don't care how. It's just, that's in the cards. You got to do it, like Final Destination, going to happen. You're going to die. But yeah, it kind of comes down to like, what happened to these people? Were they there? Or, you know, who lived above ground before he was, you know, who is he defending? Because he was in the fight. We just don't know for who.
Did you have to have followers to be in the Archon War?
I mean, if you were a god, somebody, you would imagine somebody was listening to you.
Well, no one worshipped Andreas. He's a god.
Didn't the other wolves?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, because being a god is definitely considered being like a god to people in this game.
Yeah, I guess because Razor's not really a wolf person. He's a person who was just raised by wolves.
Back in the day when the Archon War was happening, Razor, I don't think, was around.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of the people. I was thinking of him as a race of people, like Diane as a cat.
Because Andreas basically was like, he gave Venti no fight. He was like, I don't fucking want to be a god. I hate humans. And he let Venti, like, he was like, just have them. Like, so I don't know if Venti had to fight anyone else, but minimally, like, he didn't, like, Andreas was a god that wasn't worshipped by humans. He actually created snowstorms. He was like, fuck y'all.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he never was looked upon as being a coward either. Like, he made like a verbal agreement with Venti of like, all right, I give up, I give in, it's yours. Like, he didn't run, so he wouldn't be fated the same way that Orobashi would be. Where like this theory is that Celestia was just like, you can't outrun death.
It's also makes me curious as well if it's a regional issue. We know that Zhang Li took the Archon War very seriously. And this is also suggesting that Makoto and A also took the Archon War very seriously. But we know that Venti over in the corner was like, la 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 la. Like, I'm a god now. And I mean that in the most joyous way. I love Venti. But Andreas just handed him the keys to the city, basically.
Yeah.
And we also know in Sumeru during the Archon War, Deshret, Nabu, and Rukkhadevata were like, okay, let's rule together.
Yeah, you're very right. Like, there's no rules to how you had to come to who is the ruler. But yeah, there was no like, you didn't have to go to fight to the death. You just needed to be the victor. And it seems like, yeah, in Leeway, in Inazuma, it was taken as you need to fight it, which is also very interesting too, though, because if you go back, let's go back to the beginning of the episode, the Oathsworn Eye weapon in that dialogue and stuff, he actually says that he went down there because he couldn't fight Rex Lapis or Makoto. He uses different names for them. Basically, he says he was fighting the Electro and the Geo. So it's like, well, he was on that corner of the two worlds. Like, was he not sure where he wanted to go? Or I think somebody mentioned Osial's potential little walk through Leeway down into the Gunyan Stone Forest. I couldn't help but imagine that of like, well, did he originally start in Leeway and make his way down into Inazuma? Because we know that the Dark Sea exists there where he eventually just plops himself down into as well. But was there an island there? Is there a continent, or were there people there that also went poof when he gave up? There could be a lot. We don't, and all of that is theory. None of that is any fact at all. But it's something interesting to think about.
No, absolutely. There's a lot of interesting things that come from the snake.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just want Chuji's storyline to be like buttoned up. Like, I want him to find his mom.
No.
I want to know why his mom has some kind of connection with this creepy 18-eyed god. Like, is Choji's mother, or maybe even Choji himself, like fated to turn into this crazy god? Like, is this god like some kind of evil god that's trying to birth itself into the world?
Ew.
And why is it tied to Orobashi? So I really hope we don't get to Snezhnaya and then Choji's there, like, looking for his mom.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're like, she's in Sumeru.
We just kind of look down. We're like, ooh.
I was annoyed that we didn't see her in Sumeru or like hear anything about her while we were there.
Well, not yet. We also don't know her name.
Oh yeah, I guess
We've definitely seen lately that they don't shy away from going back to areas, which is nice to hear, because at least we're not waiting till endgame to find out some certain things, but it would be nice if they continued that precedence that they've set now.
Yeah, like I want a follow-up to that. I felt so invested in that whole storyline.
Yeah.
I have an interesting little tidbit from our friends over at the Shade Chamber. They did an episode on Enkanomiya, which we'll link. It covers some Orobashi lore and some mixed mythologies between Greek and all kinds of stuff. It's very interesting. But one of the things that they kind of just drop in there toward the end is that in the collection of the Book of Baikoko, there's all the list of all the people. So like we mentioned Spartacus and stuff, and you mentioned the guy whose name is now going to escape me. Like everybody had multiple names. They had their original name, and then they were like next up name. So there's a name that is somebody that we've never met. Everybody else is kind of looked at from like all like the sin shades and stuff like that. Like we know who everybody is except for one.
Who?
Eris. So Eris with an E turns into Arisu, which translates in an Anglo pronunciation to Alice.
Stop.
So Wander brings it up, and I believe it was Beefy who kind of put this all together, and she's got a thing with a golden apple because Eris apparently carried an apple and threw it at somebody's head. That part I might be making up. But yeah, they've kind of connected the idea that Alice might be like millennial old and like even written about back in Enkanomiya. So these people, she could have been a part of it before it sunk into the sea as well. But yeah, that very interesting. I actually want to pick her brain about that a little bit more too.
Beefy, comment below. Below. Beefy always has really good insights, so I'm excited to hear more about that.
They had some really cool stuff too. I believe it was Rad who goes into, I think they start talking about like some different words. I think it's within the Chinese characters, like one piece changes, and like there's kind of like a pun between a lot of like names and stuff that kind of happened down here as well. So they have a nice little theory in there. And, like I said, they mentioned mythology and stuff like that. So we'll link it on the page too, but they do have a YouTube, and that's where this episode is.
Well, on that note, I think the Shade Chamber is closing out this episode because we have to check the mail.
Mail time.
Kirara is patiently like tapping her tails over here like, hey, I have your mail and I have to sign for it.
Return receipt.
Yeah, return receipt. We have a few messages today. So our first message is actually from Ariana on Instagram, and they sent us a screenshot of a photo from this year, 2024's Lantern Rite, and referring to Nouvelette's age, because in a previous episode, we talked a little bit about his age. The screenshot from this year's Lantern Rite shows Farina, and she's thinking to herself, if I remember correctly, he's already several thousands of years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what he's thinking about Nouvelette. Now, I'm pretty sure in a past episode, I'm going to take full, not blame, but I'll take blame. It's fine. I'm pretty sure I said that Nouvelette was only about 500 years old. I could have sworn that I saw that in a video that he says he can't remember past 500 years, but I can't find it again. I tried looking. I was messaging Brandon before this, being like, where the fuck does it say this? I know it says it somewhere.
I mean, just because he can't remember that far back does not mean he's not thousands of years old.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it's definitely proven that Nouvelette became the Eudex of Fontaine a little over 400 years ago. But I also think it's interesting because Cassiodor, who is the heterochromia cat that guides us down to Remuria, who is one of the Marchusei hunters, said that the Dragon of Water couldn't be reborn while his divine counterpart, Egeria, remained in hibernation in the deep sea. So I think there's a lot of like conflict around Nouvelette's age, because we know, I don't know when Egeria stopped hibernating, but we know she died in the cataclysm.
Yeah, when she turned into a puddle, she's dead.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure what that means.
She basically came out of prison sometime during the Archon War.
Did she have to fight to become the Archon, or she was just the Archon?
No, they gave it to her because it happened when Remus was killed.
Oh, so this is like when Remuria fell.
Okay.
Yeah, and Remus left. Remus is actually from Sumeru, the Sumeru Desert, and his like area, he was like basically the god of the oases, and he left Sumeru because Deshret took over his area, and he knew that he would die if he fought Deshret. So he went north into Fontaine, and a bunch of other stuff happened, and he basically becomes, the king that he is, like the god king of Fontaine. And then, his whole group of people are wiped out by a flood. And that's when they bring Egeria, who had been imprisoned because of creating the Oceanids. So they bring her out of her prison and make her the Archon.
How desperate you gotta be that you're gonna take a prisoner and make them the Archon.
Yeah.
Nobody else wanted the area.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes fucking sense.
And an Archon that they were like, by the way, your people are still cursed, and one day the prophecy will come true and they'll all turn to water.
And you're going to turn into a puddle, which for some reason that whole idea that she turns into a puddle and her people were puddles never really hit me until now. And now it's just making me giggle over here.
But yeah, when Ariana sent the screenshot, I was like, oh my God. Because I don't know where I saw this 500-year thing. And at first I was like, well, maybe Farina is just assuming that a Hydro Dragon has been around for thousands of years. Because I would assume, too, that Nouvelette might have memories of the past Hydro Dragon. Like, he's a reborn. He's a reincarnation.
He knows that he's the reborn, yeah.
Because in his character teaser, which is beautifully animated, it's like the 2D one, he does say that he does not remember everything. And that he does not fully remember his past. So, Al, you might have the good point. You said earlier that maybe he just doesn't remember past 500 years ago. But why? Is it erosion? Mm-hmm. What is causing Nouvelette to not remember?
Well, let's not forget when Egeria died.
Oh, you think that
it says he couldn't be reunited with memories or become whole again until Egeria returned from the deep sea, right?
No. So it says that the Dragon of Water couldn't be reborn while Egeria remained in hibernation. Mm-hmm. And the other thing we know is that Nouvelette could not fully regain his powers as a dragon
until Force Lord did the, choppy chop.
Yeah, until the throne was destroyed.
Being that the throne, quote unquote, wasn't really seated upon, if you will, for 400 years, maybe that was the fact that there isn't so many, it was sitting empty for so long, gave enough of leeway for him to begin to form memories, begin to start this process.
Maybe. I'm not really sure. And none of them sit on the throne, let's be real. I've never seen Venti on a throne. So I feel like this throne, it's really just an object. I don't think it's really sat on, per se. I feel like it's
a metaphor because, who has the goddamn chess piece? That's the throne.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. It is a curious question. But I just wanted to include Ariana's message because I thought it was an interesting curiosity, and we brought up Egeria and Nouvelette a few times in this episode. So thank you, Ariana, for sending us the screenshot. It definitely has my gears turning, and I want to just find where I thought I saw the 500-year thing, and I feel stupid for not being able to find it. But that's that.
You're not stupid, and you will find it.
I'm gonna find it, and it's gonna say I remember 500 years ago, and I'm like, damn it.
Yeah.
But also that brings into the question too of rebirth. Just saying, was he reborn as a human? Was he reborn as a bebe? We don't know. Did he just appear as a full body man? It's possible.
Yeah, it is. I just hope that he wasn't birthed as a full-bodied man.
I don't think anyone birthed him. He doesn't talk about parents. And he has no memories to, I guess, to think about the parents.
Yeah.
I know I keep bringing things back to Buffy ever since we started watching it, but it kind of reminds me of like the whole like when a Slayer dies, a new Slayer is born, but they're just like, it's like, all right, Tiff, you're the Slayer now. Congrats. Here's your watcher. Like, it's not like there's a new baby born.
They're like activated.
Yeah. So like Faith and Kendra, they were both quote unquote activated. They were full-bodied teenagers when they were made a Slayer. So it made me think of that. But anyway, thank you, Ariana. Thank you.
Thank you.
We also have a message from Rahama, and Rahama actually has 2 questions for us. So their first question, they asked, what are all of your personal opinions of Albedo, who is their current favorite character? Because I ship Albedo with Sucrose, so automatically he's in my top 10 characters. I won't even talk. You guys, I want to hear what you guys have to say.
No.
Wow.
On the ship side of things, before I became a non-shipper, I always liked the idea of Sucrose and Albedo just because she always seemed so coy around him. And, I'm sorry, but there wasn't a joke there, but the fact that he's voiced by Koi, and I used the word Koi, just kind of threw me from what I was saying. But yeah, I like Albedo as a character. I find very interesting with the whole Susbedo idea. I really hate that story I know we say it all the time, but there are some stories that are behind an event that's just locked and terrible. And his being so locked is just tragic because it was so important and to never be touched again. So I think that he's going to, something is going to occur with him going forward. I don't know if that's going to be in a positive or a negative light, but I feel like he's going to come back into play when we, maybe when we eventually meet Alice and Gold and all them folks.
Yeah, it would be fun to have family.
I think he's one of the more fascinating characters in the game because he has so much potential. I mean, he's made of chalk, which is already inherently fascinating and ridiculous. But I think that he's definitely going to have like some really important lore moments as we get more into Gold and what happened to Gold. What is the heart of Nibarius? Like, there's a lot of unanswered questions about Albedo that I think they could really do some like fun and shocking things with.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, he's great and all. I think I'm a bit soured on him just due to locked events like Tiff was talking about. I want to see more. I want to see more depth and more of like because clearly the game is showing that he's got a high level of importance in the overall story. So I want to see more of that because I don't know if he is good or if he's just like, I'm a scientist, I'm gonna do science things.
He's like Orobashi.
Yeah.
But with regular sized arms.
Is he going to stop at a certain point of like, even though science may let you do it, should you? And I want to see more.
Well, we definitely know that you can't blame the character for locked lore events. That's not Albedo's fault.
Too bad. Too bad. It's soured.
Well, it's not his fault. There's more than one event. But in the second event, he does say something about Traveler. He's like, if I were to destroy Mondstadt, you would have to stop me. And I do think that he has a conscience and has the empathy to not go bad. I do think he's a good character. For the most part, I do think they're giving us playable characters that are at their heart good. The only
like
question...
Arlecchino?
Unfortunately. I know, I have to say it.
Clipping this out and putting it in my pocket in a little bow.
Emilu.
I will say for the characters that I don't like who are playable, which are Arlecchino and A for the most part, and Nilou. Nilou's a good person. I just don't like her. People have been trying to sway me on Arlecchino, and while I still get bad vibes from her, I can understand why someone might like Arlecchino. And I will say the same for A. A thought that finding eternity was going to save her people. And now she's trying to make up for the fact that it didn't. And Arlecchino did learn slightly from her trauma and is still causing issues, but is at least not causing the same trauma that she was given. So they're trying, as much as I don't want to say it. I know you can hear like the pains in my throat.
It's like my birthday right now.
Yeah, that's my thoughts there. But I love Albedo, so I love him. But he can't date Sucrose because he's dating Nat. Rahama also had a second question. They said, how excited are you for Natlon? It's coming so soon.
I'm the most fucking excited, you motherfuckers. No one can be more excited than me and Beefy.
I am going to say that the preview for Natlon left a sour taste in my mouth.
Okay.
Mine too.
Why?
Sure.
I was just fucking around with Al.
Oh.
I didn't like the dinosaurs. I actually, when I saw a screenshot, I thought it was a joke. Like I thought somebody like photoshopped some dinosaurs in there and we're like, look, it's Natlon. And I was like, yeah, ha, ha, ha. And then I was like, wait, everybody started talking about dinosaurs. And I was like, wait, are those real dinosaurs?
It was like, I haven't had time to watch the live stream yet. What are y'all talking about?
Yeah, it was like, wait, I thought that was like, I thought they mentioned something about dinosaurs and people were making like their own little funnies. Because it looked like a silly little cartoon got added
They look like
into it.
Digimon.
You want like a T-Rex, bringing it back to Orobashi.
I wanted more of a Game of Thrones type dragon instead of a Puff the Magic Dragon.
I think we all would enjoy that.
Like a Pep is scary.
Yeah, because they're more serpentine-esque.
I am still very excited about Natlon. Don't get me wrong. I can't wait to see it because I think every time they bring out a new place, even Chenyu Vale within Leeway, it's just been gorgeous. I mean, I don't know if I mentioned it on here, but Fiends is probably tired of hearing me.
I already know what she's going to say.
I love the Sea of Bygone Eras. I think it's gorgeous. I have so many pictures of it because I love it that much. So like, you know, I'm excited to see Natlon from that perspective and from the characters. I really do fall in love with a lot of characters. I collect them all and I love them all, but there are certain ones that like still kind of go to the top of the list. Like Chlorian's already 90. Poor Chiori isn't.
Mhm.
I'm excited for it.
I'll say for me, with Natlon, I am excited about it. I will say I do agree. The dinosaurs kind of left like a Digimon taste in my mouth. I was hoping to see like flying beasts of terror that were tamed though, you know, like cool shit. I was like hoping for How to Train Your Dragon. But that's a bias because I love How to Train Your Dragon. My dog looks just like Toothless. I would marry Hiccup in a heartbeat. Anyway, that aside, I'm super excited for Natlon. I feel like the teaser they showed us wasn't much. You know, they showed us cute dinosaurs, and it looks like there might have been some representation of maybe some tribes of Natlon in some of the imagery they showed, but they didn't show us a lot of the geography.
Oh no, they did though. They did. There's so many mesas. We're getting a full South American charcuterie board, and I'm so excited.
Well, I'll say that I felt like I saw nothing of the geography in the video, and maybe that's because I was distracted by the Digimon.
You have to watch it at least like more than 3 times.
I totally did. Because I was looking for something, you know, like I'm always looking for a teaser in there. But I'm super excited for the lore and the storyline. I'm really hoping that we'll get to meet Capitano in Natlon. I'm very curious about the Natlon Archon. Is it Vanessa? Like, are we going to get this big, huge, like full circle moment? Or are we not?
Or is it Himiko?
Or is it Himeko?
Ugh.
I will say I'll be slightly disappointed if it's not Vanessa, but I will be just as hyped, I'm sure, for whatever they're going to bring along. The Archon quests just keep getting more and more interesting. So I'm curious to see what they'll bring, especially because we know the least about the Natlon Archon. You know, with only 2 Archons being left, we at least know a little bit about the Saritsa. So I'm very interested, very curious.
Yeah, I feel kind of the same way. Like, I feel like it's such a wild card as far as the regions go in terms of what to expect. I mean, there's a lot of potential, but there's also potential for it to not be great. I also don't love environments in games that make me feel hot looking at them.
Do you feel that way in the desert?
Well, no, I guess humid is the main problem because like I'm fine with running around the desert, but like the rainforest and Sumeru, I'm just like, I can just feel the humidity through the screen. So knowing that it's sort of South America based, I'm not expecting to be in love with the terrain, but I'm really excited about the lore and, you know, the meeting more of the Fatui. And I just feel like it's going to be a nice ramp up for Snezhnaya. But I do feel like way more excited about Snezhnaya than Natlan.
The idea of Snezhnaya still feels like such a pipe dream in my head. Like, I keep forgetting that, like, this time next year we'll probably be getting a sneak peek at Snezhnaya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I hate that.
Oh, I love it. I'm ready for the main story to move into Conria and then Celestia, probably.
Do you think that, like, they'll stop us from going to Snezhnaya? They'll be like, actually, we're sending you to Conria first. They'll be like, fuck.
Ooh, that would be unexpected. I would kind of love that.
Well, I could kind of see the Saritsa, like, interjecting somehow in us going to Snezhnaya at Nat launch. She's like, actually, no, we're going to do this now. And she does some shit. But anyway, thank you, Rahama, for the message, for the 2 questions.
Thank you.
Just a reminder to travelers that you can feel free to email us at talestofthepod@gmail.com with any questions you might want to ask Kirara. Additionally, you can follow us and message us on Instagram, Tales of Teyvat Pod, or on Twitter, Tales of Teyvat. Tell us what you think of this week's episode, or if you just want to keep up to date on what we're doing. Next week, we are going to be talking about Al-Haytham. So bring your scholarly caps and be ready to be a feeble scholar next week. Till then, safe journeys, travelers. We'll see you next time.
Bye, whale song nerds.
No, not the whale song. What do I do?
Dory.
There's this song from the